All right, everybody. Welcome on in. So here we go. More discussing stuff. So today we've got a number of different topics to discuss, just so you know how the class is working and how we're moving ahead with things, so that you can sort of be prepared with stuff. So first of all, just a reminder, right? Hopefully we'll have some more people coming into the stream there. Kind of low numbers. Just keep in mind, we meet very little in this class, right? I mean, it is essentially almost an online class where you would have like what they call asynchronous, where we don't meet at all. We only meet, 8 times or something for the whole course. So not very much. So just keep in mind, it's really important that you're watching those videos that are posted. Where you got to do them for your points anyways. Just make sure you're completing the lessons and the assessments and moving along. That's where most of the actual statistical information is going to come from in this course, as I have to spend the little time that we have in our class meetings is going to be largely taken up by me explaining what you're supposed to do in the course so that you can finish successfully. Okay, one thing I want you to remember, or actually I haven't brought this up before, but I just want you to know that I don't shorten due dates, right? It just would lead to confusion, and it could, I think it would be reasonable for a student to complain if someone shortened a due date on them and said, oh, you haven't, if I put an assignment up there and say, well, you have till Friday to do it, and then you plan to get it done by Friday, and then all of a sudden I tell you it's due 2 days earlier, it's not really fair, right? Because it sort of threw you off from your situation. So I don't do that. I don't shorten due dates. So just be aware of that, right? I'm not going to intentionally shorten a due date for you so that you have less time. Another thing to keep in mind is if you do miss a due date, you can still generally work on those assignments, but you only get half credit at that point. So it's still way better than a 0 when your grade is being calculated. 50% is better than 0%. That's for the My Math Lab assignments. The Canvas assignments, we don't have time for late assignments. It's just not reasonable. So those can't be completed late. But the My Math Lab work, these lessons and assessments, you can complete those late for 50% credit. Okay, which, like I say, when it comes to, calculating your homework average, if you have a bunch of 50% in there, that's going to be a whole lot better than a bunch of zeros, right? So even if you miss a few assignments, it's worth it to go back. You're going to need to cover that material for the project anyways. So it's worth it to go back, get 50% on those homework assignments. It's going to end up helping your grade overall. Okay, so keep those two things in mind. The Canvas assignments have to be done on time. Oh, don't email me stuff that's due in a Canvas assignment. So if it's due in a Canvas assignment, you turn it in a Canvas assignment. If you email it to me, it's just this huge mess where I can't figure out where anything goes, and it's a nightmare. So homework assignments are accepted on Canvas if it's a Canvas homework assignment. That's the way you have to submit it to me. Couple things to keep in mind, because I've had a couple students have this pop up throughout the semester so far among my 3 classes, and I have had it actually happen once on the final exam, and that is a student sends me a link to grade it, and then I don't have access to view that link. Okay, so the person who did that on their final project, but I couldn't open it because I didn't have permission, they got a 0, right? Because what can I do? If I can't open your project, I can't grade it. It's the same as not turning in a project. And I had another student do that in one of my classes. Was it this class? No, because you haven't done this yet. I think it was in my 15-week class. They did their project visuals as a Google document, and then they gave me the link to the Google document, which is totally fine. I have no problem with you turning in that assignment that way. The problem is the Google document was set to not give me viewing permission, so I couldn't see what they did. I'd click the link and it just says, you do not have permission to view this link, or whatever it says, to view this site or something. So please make sure that if that's the way you're going to do it, make sure that you go in and then like Google Docs, you just have to find, there's like a setting where it says, you know, allow, who is allowed to view this site, and then you change it to like everyone, then I can see it, right? But if you send me a link that I can't open, or you send me a file format that I can't open, then it's the same as not turning in an assignment. So please be aware of that. If you're gonna turn something in that way, make sure I can view it. If you're gonna send me your final project as a YouTube video, which is actually preferable, don't have it set to private where I can't view it. Just have it set to, like, I think on YouTube there's a setting that anyone with this link can view it. I'm not gonna like give it out. I'm not going to go post your link on the internet so people are watching your stats video. It's just so I can watch it. That's probably the best way to do it, because if, like, I have had people send me a file format I can't open, sorry, you don't have the right thing then. So if I was turning in a video like that at the end of the semester, I'd put it on YouTube, and then, you know, it's not going to go viral or anything. Like, it's not going to catch on. But then just share that link with me. Make sure that link is viewable to me. That's the preferable way. But just whatever way you do it, make sure I can actually see it, because at the end of the semester, there's no time. I'm supposed to have grades in within 48 hours. Is like we start getting harassed if we don't have grades in within 48 hours, which means I got to move fast. From the time that you submit those videos, I got to start watching them. I got to start calculating final grades, and I got to get them in. And I usually get them in the same day, because if I don't, then the next day I start getting emails saying, "Well, why aren't?" Literally, we get emails. Why aren't the grades in? You have your contract says your grades are supposed to be in this fast, and yours aren't in. So there's not a lot of turnaround time for us on those. So, also, if you turn yours in early, remember I've talked about that, you get if you turn it in a certain amount early, you get a little 10% bonus. But also, if you turn it in early and I click it and it doesn't open, I can try to contact you and say, hey, you still got another day before this is due. Can you get it turned in that 24 hours? And then I can grade it for you, right? Just be aware of file formats. If you have any questions, come talk to me. The easiest way to do it, make your video, post it on YouTube, send me the link, or post the link, however I have it set up, and then I can grade it that way, okay? And if you have questions or concerns along the way, by all means ask, and we can take care of that. Okay, with that said, the survey has been taken by everyone who's going to be able to take it. So if you didn't, then you missed out, but it was posted. So I graded the survey questions. Let's see. Oh, okay, so if you go to take the survey, which was due a few days ago, if you go there, notice now there's two links. There's the original survey link, and there's the survey results link. This would be helpful to me for those of you that are in the YouTube stream. Can someone just confirm for me that if you click survey results, it pulls up a StatCrunch window for you? It does for me because I'm the owner, but I always have to make sure I have the settings correct so that it opens for people who are not me, not the teacher. So that'd be great. If someone could open that and then just throw into chat and confirm for me that that link works where it says survey results, that it opens the survey results in a StatCrunch window, I would greatly appreciate that. Because then I would know for sure that you all have access to the results there that I'm going to talk about, okay? So that's where you go. I'll show you again because I know people are going to ask. So you find the module that says take the survey. So it's the same place you went to take the survey. You click it, and there's now two links. There's the survey and the survey results link, okay? So, and if it doesn't open for you, just make sure that you've logged into StatCrunch recently. But there's 6 or 7 of you in there. It'd be great if one of you could just confirm that this link is working and opens in StatCrunch. Then I won't have to wonder if it's going to work properly. Because I'd really like it working today so that those of you who are motivated can work forward on that, move forward. Okay, so one of you could just click the link. That'd be awesome. And let me know. It says error. Oh, great. Okay, so All right, if anyone else can try and let me know if it's working or not. Sometimes it gets an error if you doesn't work. Okay, that's 2 people saying it doesn't work. Great. Sometimes it's about half the time where it's like it seems like the survey results work and sometimes they don't. Well, okay, so I will take care of that after class and I'll try to see if why that is not working. So as you can see, the reason I can't test it is see when I click it, it opens for me. So it works for me, but apparently it's not working when I try to share the link. Okay, so what I will do is I will try to fix that after class, and then if you still can't get in later, feel free to email me because, like I say, I can't directly check it myself. Because if I log out of my system, then I can't get into Canvas, right? I'm either logged into both or neither at the same time. So kind of a pain. Okay, so then I will try to take care of that. So let me show you how it works, though. It just says loading. Okay. Okay, thanks. We'll see if maybe I can figure out how to get that to work. Here's what it's going to look like when you open it. So what you can see is each column. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Each column here represents the responses to a question from the survey. Now, there's a weird thing here. Notice at this point, this is helpful that you have your data, but you might not go like, well, what was this question? I don't remember. So if you want to see what the actual questions are, you go back here, still and take the survey, and you click the survey, and it'll show you now the survey. You can't respond anymore because it's now closed to responses, but you can see the survey questions. But there's a weird thing that pops up here that sometimes throws students off, and I still see this in the project. Sometimes I'm watching a student's video and I go, oh, they messed up. They're off by 1. So what happens is, this is kind of weird. For those of you who have learned programming languages before, you'll kind of be familiar with this concept. In computer science, sometimes they start counting at 0, which is kind of a weird thing. But sometimes in programming languages, if you have an array or something like that, which is, just think of it as a big long row of values being stored, they'll call the first position 0. Well, they carried that over into StatCrunch. See how there's a Q0, and this is the results from the first question, but there is no question 0 on the survey. You see, it starts with question number 1. How many times do you eat fast food in a week? Well, that's Q0. So in other words, the numbering for the questions and the answers is off by 1. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking up your results and you're going, oh, I want to see the results for question number 33. Just realize that over here, that's not going to exist under Q33. It's going to be shifted by 1. So always keep that in mind when you're looking up your results. Just go over 1, and then some of them are obvious, right? Some of it makes sense. When you go to look at the answer, you're like, that's not the right kind of answer. But sometimes it's not obvious, and like I say, I've seen students where they're talking about it, and I can tell they're using the wrong data, but they couldn't, which is, that's not a good sign. If I can tell your data is not, that you're using the data for the wrong question, but you can't, that it's not a good reflection, right? Because it means you didn't even know that your question was, say, quantitative, but you're talking about qualitative data. It's not a good thing. So just be aware that your questions are off by 1, and just double check that they look like they're lining up right. Okay, so when you do it. So notice, so in other words, if we look at the question here, Q5, question 5. Question 5, is your hair curly, straight, or wavy? Well, notice that over here, those answers are under Q4, right? So that's why it's off by 1. So you have to make that adjustment when you're doing your data. Other reasons you're going to have to make adjustments. So we can see right here, here's the question. How many times a week do you eat fast food? Some of these answers are fine, but this right here, 1-2, about 3 times, 2 times. Watch what's going to happen when I go in and I do my, let's see, what do I want to do? Summary stats. For columns, I'm going to choose column 0, Q0, and compute. Notice that it says my N is 16, but when I look, no, look, there's 19 values. What do you mean? There's 19 things in this column, but you're saying my n is only 16. What's going on? Oh, I got all blurry. Let me fix that. Or maybe I've been blurry the whole time. Okay, so see how here it says that it calculated, it ran these summary stats with 16 values, but there's 19 things in my column. Why is that? Because 3 of my values are unusable. This one that's 1.2, maybe you need to go back and change the data before you calculate it. And you can do that where you go through, change your stuff, and then you can save a version of this for yourself so that you don't have to keep changing it every time you come back to revisit it. Take this data. There's all sorts of different options under data where you can save, share, export. You could export this down to a Excel file if you wanted. It's all sorts of stuff you can do. So whatever version you want to do so that you can save it for yourself. But what you don't want to do is just plow ahead with data that's not working. It's already unfortunate that we only have 19 data values. Losing any more is just going to make it that much harder to do your work. So what you should do is save a version of this, go in, maybe change this where it's 1,1-2, just maybe put a 1.5 in there, right? I think that's fair. I don't think that's like ruining the data or we're not being deceptive. If this person says 1 to 2 times, then I think it's reasonable to just say on average 1.5 times a week. This person that says about 3 times, just make it a 3. This person that said 2 times, just make it a 2. And then when you do that, it's going to go through and it's actually going to calculate all 19 values for you, which is really what you need, especially if you're trying to like correlate data, but certain values are not being included, then it's just going to be a disaster. So you're going to have to go through and massage the data a little bit where we're not changing things to get a certain outcome. We're not trying to misrepresent the data. We're only changing the things that allow the computer to actually run its program and do the things that we want it to do, because you don't want to calculate all this stuff by hand, right? Probably not. Why would you? I mean, maybe someone like is just into that calculating stuff, but even math people don't really just love calculating things. We love figuring new things out is the reason we do this. So as long as you're being ethical, it's okay to change the data in that way. Now, if someone wrote about 3 times and I changed that to 5, then yeah, that's unethical because I'm changing the data. Not like we're going to publish this stuff anyways, but you can't change the data to mean something different. I'm only changing the data so that the computer can actually use it in the computation. Does that make sense? For instance, here, what's Q2? That would correspond to how many times a week do you use Instagram? Oops, that's poorly worded. How many times a week do you use Instagram each week? Should just say, how many times a week do you use Instagram? Some people said every day. Just go in and change that to 7. If people are saying they use it every day, then that's 7 days a week, right? Where it says 50 plus, it's not going to like that. So change that to 50, 45. So I see. Some people are using it multiple times a day. That's fine. But if someone said every day, then I think 7 is the most reasonable answer to put in there. Someone said a lot. That's sort of not helpful. Not really usable. So in that case, you may just, I don't know what to replace that with. That's not a good way to answer a question at all. That could mean anything. That could mean 7. It could mean 1,000. Who knows? So that's why it's important. And we try to answer questions well when we're taking these surveys, so we're not making it harder for our classmates, right? And then just go through and try to do what you can with these questions and make the most of it, right? So you can see some of these are going to have to be massaged a little bit, some of them not. And it just depends on your questions. I tried to, if I saw questions where I could make an easy edit that I thought was going to make your answers come out better, I did do some brief editing to some of the questions just to make it a little cleaner. Some of the questions I think are going to be a little bit of an issue, but I couldn't really figure out how to fix your question much. So that'll sort of be something that you have to work with. You see, it doesn't really like apostrophes. So some of these questions you're going to have to go through and modify. What I will say is, remember, no one owns the questions in this survey. You are all welcome to use whatever questions you want. So if you get in here and you figure out that like your questions were a disaster and you're not going to be able to use your survey results, just go pick 5 other questions out of here that you like and use those. Okay? So you're welcome to use any questions. Some of you did things that are very similar to each other, very similar topics. So if you're working on one topic and someone else has something similar and you're like, oh, that's a good question they asked, we should tie that in with our work, go ahead, right? It's like there's no ownership of these questions. You use it how you feel you need to use it, okay? So we've got the questions. You can save it and then have your own stat crunch. Those of you who are Excel gurus, you know, export it down into a CSV file and use it in Excel or Google Sheets or however you want to do it. It doesn't really matter. But probably you want to keep it in StatCrunch since the tools that you're going to be using are in StatCrunch, right? So it makes the most sense to just leave it in here, but you can get your own version. I'll try to see if I can fix that after class so that everyone can get to it. In fact, I may even try to do it while class is still going because that will be a bit of an issue. But just realize for most of you, you're going to have at least some questions that you're not ready to just walk into and analyze. You're going to have to figure out like what, you know, what do I need to do? Like we said, column 2 here, what am I going to do so that these numbers are calculatable? We can't figure out the mean of the word every day. We got to change that to a 7 and go through and do that. Another common mistake I see is people not understanding the difference between quantitative data and qualitative data, right? I even saw that in my, when I was reading the questions, is there were times where someone would say, this is my qualitative question, and it was quantitative, or the other way around. So remember, like for instance, here's a category. What would that be? Question 8? Question 8, what is your limit on long-term investments today, right? So there's these categories. This is not numerical because we don't have a data value here. We have boxes that we are putting things in. We have the box for people who have less than $500, a box for people who have 500 to 1,000, a box for people who have 1,001 to 2,500, and a box for people that have above 2,500. Those are specific boxes, right? Numerical would be if we said, how much money do you have to invest every month? Well, then, you know, some people are going to say, well, I have $475 to invest in a month. And other people say, well, I have $203 to invest in a month. In that case, it would be numerical. It would be quantitative. As it is, this person, and there's nothing wrong with this question being asked this way. It's a totally reasonable way to categorize things. But what I'm saying is then you have to realize this is now categorical because I'm putting, like I can't take the mean of this. Right? And I see people do tricky things where they go, oh, I have these ranges, but I want to take the mean. So then they start doing weird things like taking the center of these. That's not really the right way to do it, right? Because it could be that everyone had $501 but that was in this category. But if you take the middle, you're assuming they had $750. So it's a misrepresentation. So I'm not saying this is a bad question. I don't have any reason to believe it is a bad question. What I'm saying is, and there's nothing wrong with it. What I'm saying is when you analyze the data, make sure you understand, are you dealing with quantitative data or qualitative? Because we have certain tools that we can show at quantitative data and certain rules that we can apply to qualitative data. And using the wrong one in your project looks really, really bad because that's like chapter 1 stuff. So if you haven't mastered the chapter 1 stuff in your project, it isn't good, right? So make sure you understand that. Let's see, what else do we have? Then you have other categories. So some of these turned out well. So like question 9, that's probably question 10. What best fits your job? So in here, there were actual like students, you had to make a choice. Right? The question was what best fits your job description, but we didn't just let everyone fill it in. We had specific options. Are you in real estate, fast food, retail, healthcare? And so people had to choose one. So then there's no kind of weird thing where people are writing the words differently or anything like that. Okay? Let's see. Do I see anything else that is weird? I don't think so. I think that more or less sums it up. Do be aware some of these answers, it doesn't like punctuation, apostrophes, commas, stuff like that. So that's why when people write, I don't know, it's got that little symbol. That means StatCrunch doesn't recognize that symbol, which you might go, it doesn't recognize apostrophes? Well, remember what StatCrunch is supposed to do. It's supposed to crunch statistics, not write an English paper. So there's reasons for that. So do the best you can with your data. Now, I fully expect there'll be people coming to my office hours and asking me questions. That's a great idea, right? So what I recommend is you get together in your groups and you try to discuss this kind of stuff. And then when your group can't come to an answer, come talk to me. I have whole groups show up, right? That's not unusual for me to have office hours. And all of a sudden there's 4 people there. I go, oh, we got a bunch of people all at once. And then I find out, oh, they're all in the same group. They're all asking me the same question. That's great. Right? Because you sat down, you tried to figure out the answer to the question, you couldn't figure it out, and you went to office hours to get some help. That's great, right? Those people, I usually have some feedback or I answer their questions for them, which means their project's going to end up looking a lot better. They're going to come across more like they know what they're talking about. So not a big idea at all. Not a bad idea at all. Right. So do the best you can with that data. The more work you do earlier on those projects, the better it's going to come out. Okay, let me see. Where was I with things? I want to talk about that. Oh, I know what I want to talk about. You have coming up, this class moves so fast. You have new stuff due soon. So you've got your project visuals. Now, the project visuals that you post here, I want to sort of remind students of this. When I give you a 10 on these, it doesn't mean your project visuals are great. It means I see that you figured out how to get into StatCrunch. You attempted to finish the assignment by going in and learning how to make some visuals. But that's not an endorsement that, like, your stuff looks great. It's just me saying, okay, like, this is me trying to get you to go in there and use the tools of StatCrunch to start getting comfortable with it, right? That way I don't have students, 2 days before the project is due going, I don't know how to use StatCrunch, right? You're getting in there and you're doing it now and you're getting used to this kind of stuff, because what's going to happen is you're going to be better at these in a couple of weeks than you are now. This class moves so fast, but even still, you will understand stats a lot better when you've done the whole course. And then when you're making getting your project ready, you can go, oh, that graph, I thought that was good 2 weeks ago, but now I know even better what to do with this kind of stuff. Whoops, and it looks like I missed one. So let's make this one do the same day, which is the 21st. Now, I give you a little bit of time to do these because I don't want you to be, cramped for time. But just realize, don't wait till the due dates. If you're doing things on the due dates, you're going to have a mountain of work to do in that last 7 to 10 days. Try to stay ahead of the game a little bit, right? The due dates is because I know most of you work, many of you have kids and all sorts of stuff going on. So I try to be flexible with it, but you should not wait till those due dates. So there's actually 2 things coming up that are due for the project. So this is where you're actually going to start using, and that's why it's so important that I get that data out so that you can start doing this, is you can start applying this information you need. Where am I? Oops, this is the one I wanted. Here. So you've got survey question summary and project visuals, both due on the 21st. Well, to do that, you're going to have to come in here to this, pick your column, and then give the type of information that sums it up. So, for instance, here we've got, how many times a week do people eat at fast food? So if I was going to do the summary, first thing I would do is go in and fix these messed up values. Make that 1.5, make that a 3, make that a 2. Get rid of spaces, get rid of words, all that kind of stuff. Then you're going to go into StatCrunch, get your summary stats, columns. For column 0, right? Match up the column you care about. Hit compute. And now I know what? I know my mean, my standard deviation, my median, my quartiles, all sorts of stuff in there that I can make sense of. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff you're going to be doing. For now, it's just real basic stuff, right? I'm just getting you used to StatCrunch, comfortable with it. I know some of you have been using StatCrunch, or you should have been using StatCrunch in the homework, but it's a little different when you're doing like one specific thing in StatCrunch for a homework problem versus this where it's like, well, here's a bunch of data, go make sense of it, right? It's a little bit different. So you've got that where you've got to give me your survey question summary and then your project visuals. So I'll show you project visuals in a minute. What was I just going to say? I was going to say something and then I forgot. Right. What you might do is not a bad idea. I mean, your stuff's going to be saved here, but not a bad idea. Just create a folder that you can just shove stuff for your project when you're done and it looks good. Just put it in there, right? So if you create a bunch of visuals you like, probably could save them because the truth is, hopefully your visuals will look a little better in a couple weeks than the ones you're making now. Okay. So let's say you've got. All right, well, let's take a look at this one. I want to make a visual here. Right, you're learning about visuals in the lessons, right? You're learning about histograms and frequency tables and dot plots and box plots and all these different types of things. Well, let's say we want to make one. So let's say I want to make a histogram based on Q0, and I compute, and here's my histogram, right? Now, this is not a great histogram. If you're just using the default values for your visuals, expect to not get a very good grade on that part of your project because this right here, not helpful, not well labeled, not informative. I hand this graph to someone and they go, what is this supposed to mean? Right? It's not helpful at all. So you need to get in here into your options and play around. The very basics that you need are, if you look here, what do we got? X-axis label, Y-axis label, title. So this is what times fast food was eaten weekly, and then my x-axis is going to be, let's see, so my y-axis label is going to be times eaten, and then my x-axis label, let's see, what was the question? It was, how many times do you eat fast food in a week? So our x-axis label will be, oh, whoops, that was wrong. Look, I'm doing it wrong here. So it's not times eaten. This would be number of people, right? Number of people. And the axis label is going to be times eaten. Number of times eaten. And that's actually not great labels either, but you see how I'm going in there and placing a label. Now watch. Now all of a sudden this is a lot more informative. I hand this to someone and they're not going to just look at you like, what did you just hand me? They're going to go, oh, this is the number of times fast food was eaten weekly. Okay, so here's the number of times that people ate this, and here's the number of people who ate that. So the number of people who ate, what, 2 or 3 times, you want to notice how there's the square bracket on the 2 and the round parentheses on the 4. If you think back to your algebra, what does that mean? That means including 2 but not including 4. In other words, this bar represents people that ate either 2 or 3 times per week. How many did that? 5. 5 people ate 2 or 3 eat fast food 2 to 3 times a week. Okay, but see how I can get all that from the labels now? There is a significant deduction on poorly labeled graphs on the project. So if I see something, remember that original one where it just said like Q0 and there was no title and it just said frequency here? That's another pretty good indication that like this person does not understand statistics because they haven't even mastered the visuals, which was what, like the second chapter or something. So make sure at the very least you've labeled these graphs well, but then also play around with them. I mean, it takes a fraction of a second to create these. You could create 5 graphs in 10 seconds and then just pick a good one. A lot of times if you take an extra 1 minute to play around with the default values in your graph, you can create something that just looks a lot better visually, and it's going to look a lot more professional. So once you've got your labels in there, then play around with it. So what can we do? Well, remember with histograms, you've got when the bins start. We probably don't want to mess with that, but we could change the width. What if I want the width to be 1? I think it's 2 right now. What if I make it 1? Oh, look, I get a little bit different histogram. Which do I like better? Do I like this one better, or do I like the one that I just was showing you a minute ago? I actually think this one's better. So see how I didn't get the best looking one right away? This one's helpful to me because you don't have those weird intervals. This is 0 times per week, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. The columns make a little more sense to me, and you can see a pattern. Oh, well, we're skewed. Our data is definitely skewed. And then we have a couple out here who eat a lot of fast food, but then there's kind of a gap here. Okay, this to me is a better graph than the one I was just looking at a moment ago. But see how the default values didn't give me that good looking graph. So this I think is actually pretty good. I would work on the labels a little bit more. I'm just doing it for instructional purposes here. But you can see I've got the labels, the title. I've got what I think is a pretty good looking graph. This to me would get a higher grade than the default one that I just showed you a minute ago. And certainly the default one with no labels on it, that makes me think that maybe you're in that, like, oh, is this project in that zone of like C/D grade? Maybe, because their graphs are not good at all, right? So so just make sure it only takes a few seconds to significantly improve the look of your visuals, and it will make an impression. You know, it's the difference. It's just a little bit of work that looks like the difference between really unprofessional work and like good looking work, right? And you're welcome to do stuff by hand. Students ask me, can I draw these by hand? You can. I don't recommend it. If you're going to do it by hand, they need to look really, really good, because otherwise, you know, if it's not done properly, it's just unreadable. So make sure they look really, really good. I've had students where they record their stuff that they've made on graph paper, but they took the time to make sure it was basically as good as if you printed it off a computer, right? If you're just going to throw it together really quick in kind of a sloppy manner and your lines aren't straight and stuff, that's not good. You're better off printing them off a computer, okay? So, you know, you've got under graphs, you've got all sorts of things you can be doing. We've got our histograms, pie charts. You know, it's just pie chart with data. Go Q0, compute. And we've got a pie chart here. Pie charts are helpful, but they're not great. Don't have just pie charts in your project, right? Pie charts by themselves, they have their place, but they're usually a better way to do it than a pie chart. But it's what everyone likes to go to that doesn't really know statistics, is they jump to pie charts. So if you have a pie chart in your project, it doesn't mean I'm going to deduct points. Sometimes a pie chart is a nice thing to include. But if all you have is pie charts, that's kind of almost the same as like not having anything in there at all, right? So make sure you're including a variety of things. You absolutely should have a minimum of 1 histogram. It's hard to argue you shouldn't have a bunch of histograms in there. It's a reason why it's the focus of a lot of the lesson and homework, sort of disproportionately about histograms, because they're a great tool, right? They're a great thing to be using. So, and then you've got the other stuff. You've got your dot plots and scatter plots we're going to be using, although we'll be actually using them with a linear regression when we get to that point. You want to include all of that stuff. Label it, make sure it looks good. And then what you'll do, want to make sure this is clear because this always throws a few students off. Remember the first line in here. Each group member must post to receive credit. You are an individual earning a grade. You must do something in order to earn those points. You can't just go, oh yeah, well Lucy's in my group and she posted, so that's my post too. Nope. If you want points, you got to leave a post with your stuff. Okay? And it's the same for both of these. Also the visuals, right? You can't go, right? It says right here. Each group needs to post in order to receive credit. So you can't go, oh yeah, it was Larry mentioned me in his post, so that's mine too. No, it doesn't matter if they mention you or not. You each have to post your information. Now, I'm fine with you all getting together and working together in your groups and coming to an agreement on what you think is good and what is bad. I actually think that's great. That's beneficial because you're all going to help each other learn a little bit more in that process. But your visuals should be well labeled. Certainly by the time we get to the final project, I mean, an unlabeled graph in your final project is a red flag to me that you're not very familiar with this stuff. Think of it this way. If you hand your graph to someone and they have to ask you a question about how to read it, you lose. Right? That's the easiest way I can come up with to think about it. Like that first one that we did. Right? When I said, what about my histogram based on Q0? You hand this to someone and they're going to go, I don't know. How am I supposed to know what this means? It doesn't mean anything, right? Because it's not labeled. But that one that we did a minute ago, is it this one? This one? You hand this to someone, and yeah, the labels could be worded a little bit better, right? But assuming that you improve the labels a little bit, you go, oh, I see what's going on here. This is the number of times that people eat fast food per week. Oh, it looks like there's a lot of people eating 1 to 2 times fast food, and then some people eating a little bit more. Notice how I didn't have to ask you any questions there? That means you have a good graph. Okay, so include all that information in there. There's a tendency to leave all that stuff off, and what have you really done? You've just created more confusion, right? There would have been less confusion if you had done nothing rather than creating something that causes more confusion. But you have to have visuals in your statistics. You want them in your video anyways. You want people to have something to look at. I mean, it's just me, but when you're making any kind of presentation, people want to look at things, okay? And usually not like words. They want to look at, like, people like to look at pictures, right? So give them a nice picture to look at, which they can sort of analyze while they're listening to you and go, oh, I see what's going on here. I see what's happening. And then you can kind of make sense of it, okay? What do we got? A few more minutes. Okay. So that's your visuals and your summaries. So make sure you get those in by the due dates. I know some people are having trouble with the due dates, but make sure you're getting in there and fixing that. And then I will try to figure out, no one was able to get the I know someone said it was loading, but it didn't come up with the data set. I wonder if I have, let me see if I can figure this out really quick. Go to my data. Maybe I didn't set it to public. Delete. Oh, do not share. I have it set to do not share. So share options, share on StatCrunch. All StatCrunch users on data. So let's go save changes. Okay, can someone try doing that again? Try pulling up that data. I think that might have been why it didn't work. So if we can, I just would like to confirm that you all have access to your data so you can do these assignments. So if we could go back into the modules and go to where it says take the survey and then click survey results. Can anyone confirm if it's working now for me? That would be a great thing to close on if that link is working now. Because then I won't have to wonder. Otherwise, I'll go in and change some stuff, and then I'll just wonder, is it working for them? Just all I need is someone to click the link and then tell me if it's working or not. Great. All right. Awesome. Got that fixed. Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for checking that out, confirming it for me. Okay. Good news. So you all can get into your data now. That means you can all start doing the stuff that you need. And this is good because let's sort of see if you're doing these discussions towards the end of oops, let me mute this really quick. If you're doing these along the way, that means you have less to do at the end of the semester, right? So you have when you get to the end of the semester, you've already done a huge amount of the project, and so then you can all right, thanks, Destiny. I appreciate that. And then at the end of the semester, you'll have most of your project done. You just have to put it into the form of the video, right? So also, you're getting these points along the way. Make sure you do these because that's part of your project points. So about 40% of the project score comes from these discussions along the way. So that's like easy points, right? That's nice if 40% of your points are kind of no-brainers, and then maybe you don't do as well when you turn in the actual video project at the end. Well, these points that you got along the way help kind of pull that grade up a little bit. Okay? So thanks to the people who confirmed that the data results are working. There's so many little settings I have to get just right that it's easy to miss one. So I'm glad that work is shareable. With that, I will close up. Anyone who wants to hop into Zoom and talk to me is welcome to do so, and I can help you out with whatever concerns or questions you have. Otherwise, just try to stay caught up. I know it's a crazy fast class, and we'll try to all get through it in one piece, right? So I'll see you in a couple days. Let's see. This is a normal week, so we do meet on Thursday. So I'll see you in a couple days. You can come back with any questions or concerns. If you've already been working on the if you've already looked at the question summary and project visuals, then any questions you run across, you can ask me on Thursday, and I can fix those or help you out with that and answer any questions. Okay, thanks everybody. Hop into Zoom if you want.